O no mai haere mai, kia ora whanau, kia ora koutou. I'm joined today in one of our conversations with Jane Hopkirk. Jane is a data analyst at Takiri mai te ato, and I won't explain any further her position and how she got to where she got to, but I'll invite Jane to do that as a kick-off to introduce where you work, Jane. So tell us about where you work, please.
Kia ora whanau, kia ora Kaiwhakaora Ngangahau o Aotearoa. Sorry if there's noise around me, I'll just apologise in case. So I'm actually at work, I'm an essential service and I work in an urban marae, and so if there is noise around, hopefully there isn't, but you know, we are on a marae. So, so I worked for this organisation a long time ago as somebody supporting young mums, teenage mums and their babies, just supporting them accessing services and getting appropriate supports in place for themselves and their whānau, and then left and did a whole lot of other stuff. My background is in trained as an occupational therapist, of course, and worked in mental health. And I've probably worked in mental health the most, apart from Māori health, I suppose. In any case, I came here begging my old boss for a job because I was working in an environment that wasn't very supportive to Māori. So I went into the role as a navigator for the Whanau Collective. So that's the Whanau organisation headed by John Tamahiri in Auckland. And I was one of the navigators, and the role of the navigator in a lot of people know about navigators now, but at the time it was kind of a newer word. And so again, it was helping our whānau to access the services they needed and being able to advocate for them, because a lot of our whānau would go to services and ask for help, and the services would say, sorry, you're not eligible, or sorry, you can't get it, or no, you've had too much, or blah, 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 blah. And there was a big component of that supporting our whānau to access health services as well. And there was a lot of our whānau, of course, are very traumatised by some of the environments that they've come from and the situations they've grown up in. And of course, when they become adults, there hasn't been much intervention to support them to live any differently. And so they don't know how to handle their own children and things, and so the patterns of behaviour start to repeat themselves. So any case, so that's how I ended up on a social service team as opposed to a health team. But probably about 75% of the work I was doing was actually supporting people to access health services or have their health needs met. If Māori come across any barriers, they withdraw, they don't push themselves forward, and they don't advocate necessarily for themselves, or they go the opposite end, they advocate so strongly everybody's terrified of them. Can be the other option. I mean, some of our whānau are very, very good at navigating and advocating for themselves. But some of the agencies are very, they've got ways of doing things, and they sometimes look at that rather than actually what does this actual person need and what can I do to help them. Right. And then I moved on from that role into becoming, supporting a database that captures the data that we record about our interventions with our whānau. So it's a case management system. And so I've gone on to become the data analyst for that system. And so I have to produce reports for funders and that kind of thing. But fundamentally, the work that I'm doing is bringing our whānau stories to the funders, obviously in data, typical ways, but it's still the stories of our whānau and how they're doing. And it's our whānau, despite everything sometimes they're living with, still, manage to parent their children well, get back into work. One of the biggest issues is finding housing or whatever. There's still strong resilience in our whānau, and if you talk to them about what their hopes and aspirations are, that's the work of the Whanau navigators is to help them achieve that. And so the advantage with that is that so many, when you're in the health service, a person is referred to you because, they've got a stroke and they have difficulty with functioning or things like that. In the Whanau order model, it's about what does this person aspire to and how can we help them reach that. And so, we're working with some of our whānau are gang members. Some of our whānau have been very much isolated by society, but they all have hopes and aspirations. And when you work to help them achieve those hopes and aspirations, it gives them the strength to help them cope with, obviously, there's issues, there might be domestic violence, there might be addictions, there might be trauma. If you try to face those things head on without an aspiration there to aim for, though it becomes very challenging trying to manage an addiction or something like that. So,
Jane, do you feel you have to be Maori to work in the areas that you've just sort of described?
So I think there are non-Māori that need support as well. But I think the issue is that so many of our Māori actually, sorry, I shouldn't apologise, but due to all sorts of circumstances and colonisation being one of those, have ended up in situations where their access and their position in society is not necessarily of their own making. And their struggle to become part of and be part of society and feel part of society means that, they end up with major barriers, I guess.
Sorry, my question probably wasn't put correctly, but do you feel in order to work in the services that you are providing, like you are occupational therapists, nurses or whatever, that you need to be Maori to work in that service?
So certainly for working in an urban marae, well, actually, it's not just working in an urban marae. When you are working with Māori, there is a different way of working if you are Māori. And I think it gives you an ability to connect to people in a way that you can't do if you aren't. And so, for example, whenever I go out and meet with a whānau, we always talk about where we've come from, who we're related to, who our ancestors were, where our land is, who our marae is. And I have an example of that. One of the first people, whānau, that I started working with, she actually turned out being my great-grandmother. She was a descendant of my great-grandmother's brother. And so though we're about, I don't know how many cousins distant, we are actually related. And it's in the relationship that then they start to trust you, because they are battling our systems so much that they feel like the trust thing is really important. And if you are Māori, then that connection can happen straight away. And obviously, you've still got to deliver on what you agreed to do with the whānau, but there is a connection with Māori that you can't, that is important, I guess.
It sounds like a sort of really, stressful is probably not the right word, but I'll use it. For a practitioner like you to work in that environment, and you probably come across lots of hardships and a lot of heartaches working with whānau around this area. How do you manage that?
So I think most Māori are used to fighting systems. We just have to. And so I think that's the hardest part of the job, is going with somebody to WINS and having to, I'll just tell you a little story. So I had a woman that was given a placement in an emergency accommodation, but she had very bad COPD and needed her daughter to live with her to help her do her self-cares and things like that. The emergency accommodation said yes, the daughter could live with her if she was designated to be a caregiver for her. And so she had an appointment at WINS the next week to be delegated to be a caregiver. So we went into one of the WINS offices and said, look, all we need is a copy of the fact that this girl's got an appointment with you next week, and that will be enough for the emergency accommodation to let the daughter stay with her mum. This was happening on the Friday. Yeah. And the WINS organisation we walked into said no. And I said to them, look, we're working really hard in the community to support our whānau, and your job is also to help whānau as well. Surely together we're on the same side, and surely all we're asking for is, a copy of the appointment. Can't you do this? And the lady said, no, we're far too busy, we can't. And then she said, and I don't like your attitude. And she then looked at the security guards at the door at WINS. So I was nearly showing out the door by the guards. But that's hard work, Yes. And actually the story turned out all right, because we went to another WINS organisation that we knew people at, and we not only walked out the door with an appointment, but we walked out the door with this person actually accredited in all the stuff that needed to be done, which was happening this week, was done. But it's that organisational barriers.
Yes, the bureaucracy of that.
Yeah. So
my question was particularly around you as a person, Jane.
Yes.
And other people that work in this area, about, you must take a lot of baggage home with you. And how do you manage that?
So I think I think that, I guess for me, part of it is, I've got this, I want to save the world kind of, I believe that if we jump up and down, we can make the world a better place. And so for me, that's why I do this job, because I do believe that I can support people to make the world a better place. And I think when you start to lose that hope that you can change the world and change a process and change an organisation, and that's when it does become a bit challenging. The thing is that I also work with a whole, there's another 60 of us here, and a lot of us are doing the same work. We're all advocating at some level for our whānau. And then we also, for example, so, there's a variety of ways of doing things, and another way is becoming a little bit political. And so we have actually got a treaty claim that's coming up about homelessness. and some of the issues that our whānau experience around not being able to find a home. And I guess for me too, Andrew, being on the occupational therapy board too, for me, part of that was about, you know, changing, influencing systems that I have to operate under, but influencing them in a way that would make it easier for, well, hopefully, well, make it, put more onus on OTs to make sure that Māori do well out of their services. And I mean, I'm responsible for that just as much as everybody else. So, you know, and then obviously, you know, going down the beach after work and going for swims in the river or in the sea and doing my quilting and, you know, doing stuff with my family at home. Those are all important as well.
Yeah. What's the spread, what's the geography of what's the reach of your organisation geographically?
So I actually only work in the Whanau Order Service, which sits within the, so that's directly from, what's the name of it? They've changed the name of it. The Whanau Order Commissioning Agency have contracted us to provide services, but I sit within the social service team. We provide services to women, children and men in the Hutt Valley, Upper Hutt, Lower Hutt area.
Right.
Takiri Maitiata has more contracts, and so some of them, like the Regional Stop Smoking Program, which has a branch in Masterton at Whaiora Whanganui, and we go out to Porirua as well. But most of our reach is within the Hutt, Lower and Upper Hutt Valley.
Are you the only occupational therapist?
Yes, I am. Oh. Partly because the problem is that a lot of these roles are not funded for professional wages. So I think occupational therapy is a very good profession to have for the navigation service, but the contracts are not well funded, so many occupational therapists probably wouldn't want to work in this situation.
Right. Okay. And so a lot of the people that work with you then are not health professionals, but come from another profession, or just people who want to? So
one of my other workers is she's a counsellor, a professional counsellor. One of my closest workmate. So we've got a few social workers in the role as well, and then my workmate is actually a cultural advisor, and so he brings a real strength to our service that is very valuable by us and by the whānau that work with him. But of course we've got other services here that employ nurses and social workers and quit coaches, and we've got one person that's just soon going to become a nurse practitioner, so that's going to be really great to have here in the service.
Yes. So you've moved into data analysis or recording stories of whānau and how they've accessed the service. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how you then present that information to the funders?
So part of the reporting requirements is to identify outcomes that whānau are wanting to achieve in their what do you call it? In their journey with us, and so then the staff then write, obviously do their case notes, and in the case notes you identify the goals that are achieved, and then the outcomes that are achieved as well. And so some of the outcomes are, our first outcome is always about whakawhanaungatanga, which is the client getting to know you and you getting to know the whānau. And part of that obviously is the assessment process as well. And then a lot of our outcomes are relatively, like about reducing violence within a home, or supporting parenting because, oranga tamariki might be involved. So what I see is how those outcomes are achieved and what people do to reach those, which, I mean, you can't say that people have eliminated violence in their family, but you can see huge gains in the way they relate to each other. And
Well, who funds the organisation?
Who would?
Who funds your organisation?
So it's the Whanau Commissioning Agency, and that money comes directly from the government, though TPK are involved as well. For the social service organisation that I support as well, that funding comes from Oranga Tamariki itself. They give us money to help us support whānau that are having to work with them. And then there is also money from MSD for the domestic violence work that we do.
And the money you get, is it something that you get for 3 years or 1 year? How much forward planning can you do, knowing that you've got a revenue source coming in?
So with the Whanau Water contract, that has only just recently moved to a 3-year contract. So prior to that, we didn't actually know if we were going to have a job in July every year. With the other contracts, I think they have moved to 3 years, though that might be reviewed. I think it comes up for a review. So, I mean, that's just part of working in a mighty organisation. Your job isn't necessarily secure. And to be honest, that's one of the things my general manager worries about the most is, can she employ her staff in July of the year after the contract's finished?
Yeah. So thank you for giving me that overview of the services that are running and you're involved with. We then now have COVID-19 dropping on us.
Yes.
How has that affected the services you've been delivering and the team's been delivering during the lockdown and the crisis?
So I ran around frantically beforehand because we were scared that we were going to have, we knew we were going to have staff working from home, as well as still some staff coming in here to the marae. And so I ran around frantically the week before, getting as many laptops and things sorted out so people who needed to could work from home. And then we were looking at, I guess because it came quite quickly, we weren't necessarily that prepared about what we should be doing. But in the biggest, obviously a lot of our clients are quite vulnerable and they need, like we don't know when a domestic violence incident is going to happen, or they get arrested for something and they call us because they need help going to court or whatever. So that's when we thought about using the Facebook page as a way to connect with our whānau. And so the general manager we do karakia every morning, prayers every morning and hymns. And then our general manager addresses everybody with, whatever she wants to talk about for the day. And then we've provided a variety of other things through this Facebook page. But the page has absolutely exploded. And we have got our, because it happened, the Facebook page happened kind of the day that shutdown happened. And so it's only been word of mouth that's gone out there to say this is the whānau that we work with, there's a Facebook page you can join. And not only has it exploded, but and our clients, you know, it's not just family members of staff here, though there is that group that is involved too, but we see a lot of our clients are actually accessing the page. They're joining us for karakia in the morning, and then we've got our phone number on the page, so they've been ringing us when they need help, and we've provided over 2,000 sanitation packs out to families in the hut area, and over 600 kai boxes. And so, you know, the Facebook page we've had dance fit on it, we've had te reo snippets, we've had karakia, and then of course there's all the COVID-19 stuff, and there was a lot of difficulty in the Māori community around the tangihanga and the fact that we couldn't have them anymore, and so there were some really robust conversations on the Facebook page around that too, and you know, and Teresa had to stand up, and you know, because one of her cousins passed away, and this person had to be cremated, and we don't believe in cremation, you know, but it had to happen. Well, she wanted to go home, and so that was the only way it was going to happen. So there's been, it's been a very, very important tool for our whānau out there.
Yes.
And as an occupational therapist, I know anybody can start a Facebook page, but and I'm sure lots of you have out there too. But I guess the importance of occupation, and so there's a cooking group on the page, and you know, people are sharing their recipes with each other. There's dance fit, people have put ideas about how to play with your kids, and so as an occupational therapist you can see the advantage of all that stuff being made available. And it's our marae staff here that have helped too, and actually some of the whānau themselves are putting stuff on as well, and so it's just been a great link right through this COVID-19.
Just looking at the lockdown, that we've moved from level 4 to level 3 now, of course.
Yes.
But we were all locked down in our little bubbles.
Yes.
And just wondering, you know, being locked down in a bubble sort of heightens the potential for domestic violence. And you know, just generally not getting on. Have you found that with the clients you've been working, or the whānau you've been working with?
So that's what we've got some staff working at home because they've got children themselves, or they've got people, either themselves or people in their household that have got major health issues. And so the kaimahi that are working from home, that's the kind of stuff they've been doing, is they've been ringing whānau, just keeping checked in with them to make sure they are managing. And we do run a relationship building or anger management group, and they've been supporting their members quite regularly with things to do and how to cope in this situation. So there has been an increase in domestic violence. Certainly in the Hutt Valley there has been. And so just, I think that's for us why the kai boxes and the sanitation packs. So the sanitation packs have included really simple things like toilet paper and soap and washing powder for clothes and that kind of thing, because when you're on a really tight budget, those are the things that you tend not to pay for. And so and being able to give people kai boxes as well has been really important to help families not get so stressed that they, you know, are ending up in those violent situations. Because if they've got food on the table, that helps a whole heap around how you can get on with your family. If you're not having to worry about that, that helps.
I was just wondering, Jane, whether you take occupational therapy students on a placement.
I have in the past. I haven't recently because I'm working in the data governance area. I probably should.
But do you think, you know, that there is an opportunity for students of occupational therapy to look at the Whanau service that you offer?
I mean, obviously it's dependent on what my managers say, but yeah, yeah, potentially, yes.
So you've moved around in this service and in your career. Where to next, Jane?
No, I'm here for life now.
All right.
I retire after this. No, I'll be old, and I mean, my GM is late 60s, yeah, early 70s. So yeah, we've got quite a few elderly working in this organisation, and yeah, so long as I'm useful and still able to support the organisation, I'll stay.
Okay. Jane, it's been really nice talking to you and catching up with you again.
Yes, nice.
As you know, as Jane said, that she was the chair of the OT board for some time and a board member, and of course, as the chief exec registrar, have worked very closely with Jane, but have just your commitment to Maori and wanting better things has been a shining light wherever you've been, whether that's in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or when we've travelled to other places like Canada and the UK. It always has been that mantle of yours to shine a light on Maori. So well done for that, and thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me. And best of luck. Ka kite ana, Jane.
Kia kaha, everybody. Ka kite. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Jane.